takes, that's you. 3 takes, not me. 2 takes if you lucky. First take, stop me. 4 takes, that's you. 3 takes, not me. 2 takes if you lucky. First take, you got me.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Cobb and Dash Show. It was good seeing pretty much the whole lot of the squad, the BL Plus on Saturday. Teja and Reuben were not there. It was good to see everybody in the flesh, and yeah, I thought everyone had a really good draft. I thought all the teams are really even in the league, and it's nice to see that everyone's starting to level out, and I'm a big fan of it. What did you guys think of Saturday's event, the biggest event of the year?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think this is probably one of the best drafts we've had in recent memory. No, I mean, we'll get to the rankings, but I mean, I think this is as close as all the teams have been since I can remember. So kudos to all the owners. Really got it together this year.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Usually, for myself, the whole month of August, it feels like every single weekend I have a bunch of drafts. This was kind of a weird year where it felt like almost every single one of my drafts were stacked into one weekend. I had a blast. I think Saturday was capped off not only by a fantastic draft, being around everyone, all the camaraderie. I gotta say, there was some drama going on Saturday between Teja and Paul, and it made the day pretty special. I'm sure we'll get into that in a second, but you know, the feud that's starting to develop is something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that on the show, but for those of you who don't know, Paul was pretty vocal during the draft, pretty much anti one owner's picks. I didn't hear him say anything about any of those picks. It was just Taja's picks. For those of you that don't know, there is a feud that began brewing months back at a pickup basketball event. Afterwards, we're talking about Kevin Durant getting his jersey retired. Teja said one opinion, Paul had another opinion. But then Paul started to get very aggressive with his opinion on it, started yelling and I didn't think anything of it, right? Then fast forward 2 months later, Teja and Paul are banging down low for a rebound. I guess Paul didn't like Teja's boxing out, so Paul pegs a ball at Teja. Teja catches it. Teja's weirded out by him throwing a ball at him, and so Teja kind of does the Matt Barnes to Kobe's face kind of thing. Paul flinches. Then Paul presses up on Teja after that. Teja gives him a little body. Paul falls to the ground. And ever since then, there's been kind of just kind of a weird rift going on, and that was highlighted during the draft on Saturday. Now, hearing that story, if you didn't know that, now it all makes sense why Paul was doing that. Teja let those comments go over his, just brushed off his shoulders. He doesn't really care what Paul has to say. So just good stuff. And if you watch the show, we've seen rivalries that we've tried to make happen, that we've really tried to push for, and they weren't really legitimate. This one we don't really have to push for. This is happening right before our eyes, and I'm here for it. What do you guys think about this whole Paul Teja rivalry?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was the closest owner to Paul. Heard some chirping. I pretty honestly, I'll give credit to Paul. He came locked and loaded, ready to just throw some good jams down. But yeah, I wasn't there for the basketball stuff. I had heard what had happened. Didn't know if it was gonna bleed over into the league, and here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah, pretty.
And we're not even in week 1 yet. I mean, this is happening. We're not even in week 1 of the season yet. That's just crazy to me.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. We've had a bunch of rivalries in years past, but to me, it seems like the rivalries in the past. You look at like Dash and Hoch, and just a bunch of rivalries that the league pushed out as kind of this narrative. It was more so kind of friendly rivalries where people were kind of nagging on each other and going back and forth and chirping each other. It was all in good nature. This to me, it seems personal. Nothing about this seems staged. This is real emotions, and I think this could be a first for BL Plus. So I'm excited to see where this takes us.
Yeah, and hopefully we got some good team names coming up in the future. I think I throw a few for Teja to use against Paul, but Teja's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna stick to fantasy, and I'm gonna ride it out. So kudos and all respect to him, but he's still new to the BL Plus, and he'll learn real fast that we're not gonna let this rivalry go away, buddy. This is gonna be in your face every week on the Cobb and Dash show. We're gonna let you hear about it. So, all right, well, that does it for us on that end. We're gonna go to the draft, kind of the draft grades. Who does his draft grades doesn't count. This is the draft grades that really matter. So the way it's gonna go, we're gonna go by standing. So last pick to first, or worst Tomato King to the champion, and we're gonna start off with the Tomato King's draft, and that Tomato King also executive order after the draft. We thought about it. Tomato King is no longer a thing. It's gonna be called the Pancake King because the Pancake Challenge was such a hit that now it's no longer Tomato King. It's the Pancake King. I think it's fantastic. The color of the emoji looks good. It looks good right next to the yellow crown on the emoji, so I'm really happy about that. But for that, we're going to have our guy who finished ahead of us, me and Alex last year, Cobb, do the honors and talk about A. Millie's team. So give us his grade and why do you have it as such?
Yeah. Firstly, I just want to say, based off the, Tomato King, I thought was a good bit, but I think it was the right call since we'd never even used tomatoes in this league. Too much to explain. But I like that, the winner of this league probably has a stack. The loser of this league also gets a stack, get a pancake stack at IHOP. But kudos to Adam. I mean, I was in 2 drafts with him this weekend. He had first overall pick in both of them. That just happens sometimes. And I don't know, overall grade, before I get into what picks I liked, I probably give him a nice B. I think he had some pretty easy picks. Some people fall into him. CMC was the right call, number 1 overall. He's starting. I don't really see a ton of weaknesses in his starting lineup. Njoku, he's taking a risk on for a starting tight end, but if you're not getting one of the elite tight ends anyways, it's kind of a crapshoot. I don't really like Dak as his quarterback, but he has some good pieces to be competitive this year. I don't know. I think he's more of like an 8 or 7 seed. But I think he's made some good steps to rebuilding. He has some good potential keepers for next year, and I don't think he's going to be going to an IHOP anytime soon. So I'll give him a B for his draft.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's a good team. We'll get to who we think is in the playoffs later. So I agree with the sentiment there. A B is pretty solid for that. So for my draft grade right here, I'm going to talk about ZT's team. And ZT's fantasy. I'm looking through the list here. ZT's fantasy team. All right, good team name. Some of these good teams need to be changing up their team names because they didn't work out for you, so it's time to change it up. But anyway, ZT's team wasn't really high on it going into the draft last week because I know he's, as I've said before, the smartest guy in the room. Complex that he has. He's always trying to do things that aren't the popular opinion. He does things out of the traditional way. And he honestly went chalk. DJ Moore fell to him, and he took him. And I was like, dude, if you don't take DJ Moore, you're a fucking idiot. And then he did it. I thought his whole bullshit was going to come into play. He's going to draft someone that didn't make any sense there. But his team from top to bottom, Lamar, solid fantasy quarterback. You know how I feel about him in real life, but solid fantasy quarterback. Kamara's not getting suspended this year. McLaurin's solid. Dawson Knox, as you said earlier about Njoku, if you're not getting a top flight tight end, literally everybody else within 2 points of each other. I mean, it's a crapshoot. But his flexes, here's where I think some people were kind of confused by his drafting. So his pick, 3rd pick overall, he ended up going Saquon Barkley. A lot of people think he should have gone either DeAndre Swift or Aaron Jones over Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley has not held up in his entire career. So if Saquon and ZT's hoping that Saquon Barkley pans out, he's dogging the Giants receivers and how they're going to rely heavily on him. It's like, well, who have the Giants receivers really been over the last few years? Not big names. So like they've really never had like good big time receivers. So like nothing's changed really. It's a contract year for him. So that's really the only difference that I think if he does stay healthy, it's because of the contract year, because the contract year is undefeated. It's one of the only few things in the NFL that is undefeated. It's the contract year. And his last flex is Amon-Ra St. Brown with the bench of DK Metcalf, Elijah Moore, Rashad Penny, and Brandon Ayuk. He's got a lot of options there. And then also, not to mention, Boobie Gibson, which he stole from everybody in the draft because it was the day before Brian Robinson, rest in peace. He got shot. He's not dead, but he'll be dead on my roster for a while because I don't know when the guy's gonna be playing. So I'm really upset by that. But no, and then Ramondre Stevenson, Tyler Lockett, dude, this guy's fucking team is pretty deep. So I think ZT, I had him as a bottom feeder last week. ZT's, I'm giving him an A. And I think ZT is going to be a team to be reckoned with this year. We'll get to my playoffs, but I think he's going to be a top 3 team going into the playoffs this year. Maybe bye week, but we'll see. That's where I have it. Alex, talk to us about D. Roden's team.
Now, diving into Roden's team here, unfortunately, with that being said, I do not think he capitalized. Going through this, the last 2 days, analyzing everyone's roster, to me, this is a bottom 2 team. Usually when I kind of look at, keeper leagues are a thing of their own. They're very different than redrafts. But, doing a lot of research and preparing for this draft season, you tend to understand what players, rounds, ADPs they're going to go in. And when I look at a keeper league team, I like to kind of look at it from a redraft standpoint. Like, man, if you have like 3 or 4, if you have like 5 players that would have been drafted, one first round guy, 2 second round guys, like 3 third round guys, that's an insane team that you never would have been able to achieve in a redraft. Here, there's not a single player in this roster that's going in the first round. Really, there's no guys here that are going the second round. Then you got a couple third round guys. You got like T. Higgins, Mark Andrews, Connor, all those guys kind of going like the third round of redrafts. Eli Mitchell, maybe Waddle going in the 4th. So you got a bunch of third round and 4th round value in terms of ADP and redraft standpoint. And to be honest with you, that's not going to cut in this type of league. There's a lot more teams that we're going to get into here, but there's some teams that are top heavy that have depth to go along with that. In my opinion, this is someone who needs to prepare his appetite and needs to hope that he enjoys pancakes because his trajectory looks like he could be competing for that.
Wow. So we have the first ever projected tomato or pancake king on the Cobb Dash show. That's big time.
Yeah, and I don't know if he's necessarily my favorite to do it. I think he's a front runner. I think
interesting. He's your front runner, not your favorite. How does that? I mean, there's probably somebody else who's coming up here that you think is the favorite. Then
there's two teams that I think have an equal shot at, but I would say he's definitely high on my list for the running of the Pancake King.
In the mix, in the pancake mix, for sure.
I'm right there with you. Poor Dave. Did you give a grade for his draft?
We'll give him a solid C.
Really?
Yeah, we'll give him a C.
That's that. You're a nice teacher. You good solid grader right there. So Cobb, give us who was my preseason just based on keepers champion of this league, which is ridiculous that we did a champion based on 3 keepers. But give us Stu Adams. What was your grade for Stu? And tell us what you think about that team.
Yeah, so I have the honor of giving out the grades for our last 2 Tomato Kings, both also participating in that IHOP punishment. Because Stu didn't do his punishment last year, but we're over that part. I think just like Adam, I think Stu came back and he's showing that he's not just going to be someone that you can just step over anymore. He bounced back. I think we all share the same sentiment on this show, that Stu's back. A lot of it is one, because of his keepers. 2, because he changed his name to include Barry, so that means he's almost a lock for the playoffs. Yeah. And then 3, he, in my opinion, best draft out there by far. I'm going to give Stu Adams an A for the draft. I think top to bottom, roster-wise, he doesn't really have any flaws. And on top of that, he has depth. So he has Rodgers at QB. Rodgers, not the best supporting cast anymore, but I think he's still going to live up to being at least a QB1. Then he's got his keepers in CD, Nick Chubb, Michael Pittman. That's a great trio to build a squad around, and that's exactly what he did, taking DeAndre Swift with his first pick somehow falling to him. I think he had the 4th pick in the first round. I don't know how Swift fell to him, but that's just how things go. And he had a few people fall to him too. Hollywood Brown, and on top of that, I think Stu. Stu typically he would go zero running back strategy. This year he won 3 running backs right in a row. And I also think he was the fastest drafter out there. I think every single time Teja picked, Stu was up already making. He's like, oh, all right, Teja didn't take my guy. I'm up there already. Like he had no doubt in his mind with who he wanted to draft. So 8 for Stu. And we'll get the playoffs, but he's going to be a force to be reckoned with this year. I get him week 1. Not great.
Yeah, hey, but the way you look at it, it's a good test for you, and it's a good test for him. Let's see if Stu Adams is legit going up against a guy who's been in the championship the last 3 years. So it's a good test for him. Is he legit or is he a pretender? So it's gonna be interesting to see that one. Okay, so now I have the privilege of talking about a guy who's he's been called a rat before in the league. Now he's been calling the Mighty Paul. I mean, based on the way he was speaking the other day. And new team name, the Wolf of Paul Street, not bad. I don't really understand what his logo really, how that really tells a story.
Stocks, man. You now watch that movie?
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. I forgot his dog's name's Penny. Totally forgot that. Okay, well that makes sense. All right, so I guess B- on the name, Paul. B- B- on the name. Draft wise, I'm gonna go B- on the draft too, because I was not a fan of Paul's draft. Yeah, you guys were high on his keepers, but I was like, let's wait till the draft, because Paul's done some weird things in the league, trading Kadarius Toney and a 4th-round pick, or trading Eli Mitchell and a 4th-round pick for Kadarius Toney. I mean, he's done some really dumb things before, so I wanted to wait and see on what he did, right? So his keepers are really high to start off with, and then he has Mike Williams. He drafts Mike Williams, and then he ended up trading him for Breece Hall, who I'm not a Breece Hall fan at all. I think Breece Hall, he was running with the threes the last 2 preseason games. I mean, the guy who was there last year actually wasn't bad. Michael Carter looked good last year. So Breece Hall's not the best situation as you'd want a guy in your 1st-round pick to be. He has Mike Williams. You have Herbert and Mike Williams. Why would you trade away that stack? I get you got Kittle out of it, but Breece Hall, I mean, looking at his roster is starting lineup right now, and this is Breece Hall and Kareem Hunt. You got two legitimate backup running backs in his starting lineup. No, I mean, it's like I wanted Paul to do well. I wanted you guys to be right about everything, and I was like, it's 3 keepers: Jonathan Taylor, Justin Herbert, Stephon Diggs. Fantastic. But the rest of that team, Kittle, solid tight end. It's not the next tier of tight ends on the Dawson Knoxes of the world. It's like that middle ground from Kelsey, Andrews, and then everybody else. And I think Waller's ahead of him. So I had tight end 4, not bad. But man, this is how bad his team is. And so Devontae Smith's a 6th man, his first guy off the bench if he wants to, if he has an injury in the starting lineup. The first guy outside of Devontae Smith is Jahan Dotson, a number 4 receiver with the Commanders. That's pretty shitty. And then on top of that, Joshua Palmer's his next guy. I mean, Jacoby Myers is his best guy on his bench right now as I'm looking at it. I mean, he could have done a little better than this. This is pretty bad. I mean, this is probably one of the worst drafts I've seen in a while. Obviously, we talked about Roden having a bad draft, but Paul was in a good position to draft better than he did. I don't know. Let me see here. I'm just curious to see who was on board when he ended up drafting Kareem Hunt. I mean, let's see here. I'm just going to do this real quick. I'm just curious because why are you drafting Kareem Hunt? You don't have Nick Chubb anymore. You're not drafting a handcuff anymore. I mean, maybe he's looking at long-term wise, but why are you looking at long-term? Your 3 keepers are solid. You're going to have those guys for a long time. I mean, let's see here. So I just want to see this real quickly before I continue to dog his team. Kareem Hunt was drafted. If you guys can see where Kareem Hunt was drafted, just let me know who was drafted ahead of him. Sorry.
Yeah, he was drafted in the 6th, 5th.
Okay, 5th round.
So Amari Cooper, Brian Robinson, Dalton Schultz, Olave, Brady, Miles Sanders, James Cook all followed him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Tony Pollard too.
Tony Pollard too.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus, you could have Tony Pollard. I mean, Tony Pollard's got standalone value at least. Kareem Hunt last year was pretty much relegated to a freaking being a handcuff for Chubb, really. And he's starting him in his lineup. I mean, yeah, Paul, he's lucky I'm giving him a B- for this one. After his draft, this is how bad I thought his draft was. And he all really took, if he just kept Mike Williams, I think he's a playoff team. But because he didn't take Mike Williams and goes Breece Hall, a running back who you're not going to keep. I mean, let's be honest. The best time to draft a rookie is in the rounds 3 to 6 range, right? Anything from 3 beyond, because that's potential keeper. You're not keeping Breece Hall or first round pick, right? Or the second?
Second.
Second. Okay.
Yeah.
Second. You're not keeping Breece Hall. I don't give a shit. Second. Maybe Paul Mike. Paul likes keeping high tenor guys. But yeah, I really don't like Paul's draft at all. I don't like his starting team. That's a team that I can't wait to play because I think it's going to be a dub. Honestly, it might be one of the worst teams in the league this year. Just basically, I didn't realize how bad it was. But then I saw Jahan Dotson as his like next man up kind of thing. It's pretty shitty. So yeah, Paul's in my bottom 6 of the league this year. I was really disappointed in Paul because he has such good keepers. So like, it's really not hard to fuck that up, and he kind of fucked it up. But that's, yeah. I'm very curious to see where you guys have him after that because you guys are big fans of his keepers. I'm curious to see where you guys have him in your top 12. So. Sorry, Paul. I didn't mean to go hard on you, buddy, but you're talking a lot of shit the draft, not to my team, which is in general, and you backed up with having a weak draft. That's weak, dude. That's weak. I have high hopes for you. I expect more out of you. But anyway, so Alex, talk to us about your boy Teja. We go from Paul to Teja. Alex, let's talk about our guy Teja's draft. Another kind of a questionable one, but let's talk about it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty fitting that, he was right next to Paul in the draft order, with the way things played out here. Initially, obviously, there was a lot of bickering from Paul, and, there were some remarks across the room about some of his picks saying that, there was the 2018 comment saying that he was drafting some older players, saying that he was reaching way too high on certain guys and whatnot. When the draft initially happened, I honestly wasn't a big fan of Taja's team. I think I looked at his roster, that night, maybe that next morning after the draft, and really wasn't a big fan of it at all. Now that, things have kind of settled down, I've had majority of my drafts and kind of had it, 2 days for it to sink in. Looking at it right now, I'm definitely higher on it than I initially was. I'm going to give him a solid B. I'm giving him a B for my rankings. Here's my thoughts. I mean, there's a couple of things that go into this. One, Teja is a very high level fantasy owner. He's very thoughtful, and I know for a fact he didn't go to this draft blind. He had a strategy, and I'm pretty confident if you ask him, he would say he actually executed it to a T. He took over CP's team, which was awful. I think there's no denying that it was awful. He didn't have a lot of good keeper options. He didn't even have a top 3 pick. He had the worst pick that you could get for not taking over a non-playoff team. So obviously he traded up, but still not in a great position. What I think he did is this, right? One would say taking over a team like that is a 2-year rebuild. I think a lot of owners would probably agree. I talked to Teja this offseason. He was, he kind of smirked and chuckled at the remark, and he was pretty confident that, he could at least slip into the playoffs this year and stir up some things, maybe even make it to the semifinals and just see where things happen. And really set him up well for next year. Looking at his roster, I think he's got a chance to do that. Like I said, initially I wasn't a big fan. Where I have him right now, overall in my rankings, realistically, I have him kind of in that 7-8 slot, but I think he absolutely, if things go right, can end well in terms of him potentially, getting hot and sliding to the playoffs. Obviously, he has to stay healthy. I think there's quite a bit of, people on his team right now that have some health concerns. I think he is one stud away from having a top 4 roster. I think he's one stud away. When you look at it, like Keenan Allen, or Aaron Jones, second round value, Keenan Allen, you got Cooks, Michael Thomas, Akers. They're all right there, like 3-4, cusp type of guys. He's missing that one first round superstar. And I think if you take a look at the upside that is on his roster, right, you have people like Cam Akers who, because of the Achilles, issue is going in, the mid 4th round in redrafts. That's someone that last year was going kind of in like that 1-2 turn. Someone like Michael Thomas coming off the injury. If he hits his ceiling, he could be a top 8 wide receiver easily. DeAndre Hopkins suspended the first 6 games. If he can stay, 3-3, and he's got Hopkins coming back, that automatically could be, potentially a flex one type of player coming into his roster. Chris Godwin, the first, 3 to 4 games might not be 100% by the second half of the season, is someone that could be a stud and a wide receiver one candidate. If all these things go right, and I think this is where I admire his draft and giving him a solid B. He knew he had to take a flyer on players that had upside, and I think he threw those flyers out. And I think he put his team in the best position to succeed given the limited capital that he had. Because if these guys do hit their ceilings and stay healthy, and he can, like I said, if he can manage to stay like 3-3 the first 6 weeks of the season when Hopkins comes back and Godwin's up to full speed, honestly, there's no reason why this team can't make the playoffs. So I commend Teja for that. But like I said, realistically, overall, just knowing, how competitive this league is, I think he'll be right there, right outside the playoffs, and even into the last week of the season have a shot. And I think he will just fall short. But the last thing I will mention is he also, took Calvin Ridley, thinking a little bit for 2023. If he does fall just short of the playoffs this year, which is where I kind of am projecting him, I think he will be a lock to make the playoffs next year.
Yeah,
That's kind of my thoughts.
I do kind of agree with that. It's the fact that he took over a bats. He really had no like firepower. And yeah, he's sacrificing the first few weeks of the season. But like you said, if he stays 2-4, 3-3 with Michael Thomas, Hopkins, and Godwin all coming to their own by week 5 or week 6 or week 7, that's a scary team because you have that's a lot of guys there who've been wide receiver ones for many people's rankings in the past. I agree with your assessment on that.
Did Stu have all 3 of those guys last year?
Did he? Did he have Godwin?
I think he did.
I think he might have.
Wow.
Kind of key.
Yeah.
It is a key Stu roster.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so Cobb, let's talk to us about our other co-host here, Alex. And Alex, you can respond to what Cobb has to say about your team, about just in general what you thought about the draft and how you went about it.
Yeah. So top to bottom, I like Alex's team. I think he had a little bit of a shocker taking Etienne in the first. I think that was a little surprising to me. Not that I don't like the player, I just think it's kind of banking on him making it out this year. But again, a lot of experts love him this year. But top to bottom, I mean, Stafford Cup stack, one of the best stacks in the league right there, easily. Javonte Williams, everyone's excited for him this year. Hopefully, well, for Alex's sake and every other person that has Javonte Williams' sake, that it starts to get to more of a higher split in favor of Javonte with Melvin Gordon. Darren Waller, Leonard Fournette, Travis Etienne, Devin Singletary to round out that starting lineup. I think it's solid. Overall, I think the draft grade I'd give is probably a B. And I'm only doing a B because I think this team is going to be consistent. It's more of which way are they going to be able to hit their ceiling. So I think, between Javonte, there's, Melvin Gordon there. It depends on how that split works out. Darren Waller, Devontae Adams there now. How is that going to work out? But to Alex's credit, he does have some good backup tight ends with Freiermuth and Albert O. I don't even want to pronounce that last name. Good potential there. Lenny should be great. That was a good move, I think, in the offseason for Alex there. And then there's Travis Etienne and Devin Singletary. Really going to have to hope that those guys pan out. But, and then on the bench, he has some potential guys he can plug in with Treylon Burks, who I think will maybe come online later in the season as these younger receivers typically do. Julio Jones, who knows how he's going to be in the Buccaneers offense. But again, I think that was a good pick. Same with Rondale Moore. I think he's going to be useful, at least before Hopkins comes back. So I think Alex is going to be as competitive as he always is. I just think there's some question marks as far as which way the team is going to go. If everything clicks, this is going to be a top team for sure. But it's all about a few of these coin flips of how these players pan out. So overall, I give it that B.
Yeah,
Thoughts?
yeah. Just briefly talk about my team. I will say the one nice thing going into week one, I do have the highest points projected right now going into week one, which is kind of key. Not that it really means anything, but kind of key. Um, I mean, yeah, just really briefly, I had I would argue the most limited draft capital in the entire league going into this draft. And mainly that was to acquire, Travante. I had to, give up 2 picks for that, gave up another pick for, Fournette. Obviously, Cup, I had to give up my second to keep him. I had extremely limited draft capital. And so I knew that one, I was not going to have a lot of depth. And two, I was going to be heavily reliant on my starters. And so I feel like overall I'm happy. I would say I probably have a bottom four, depth in the league, but I really love my starting roster. I know obviously I'm biased because it's my own team. These are my guys that I was, targeting, in the draft. But overall, I mean, that Stafford Cup stack, could easily be a top 3 stack this year. I think it probably was last year. Javonta, in my opinion, now there's a reason why I traded for him. Obviously, I'm high on him. I'm probably higher than almost anyone in the league. But when you look at his metrics and you look at Jonathan Taylor, the leap that he took from year one to year two, all the speculation of Hines, being a committee going to year two. Now, everyone is saying, okay, they re-signed Melvin Gordon for 1 year. Next year is going to be Javonta's backfield. This year is going to be 50-50. Everything that I've been seeing in the last couple of weeks is leaning towards it being the Javonta show, at least 70-30. We'll see what happens. I think he has the opportunity to smash his ADP. I think he was going as like the running back. Well, some rankings had him from like 11 to 14, like RB 11 to 14. I think he has the biggest potential to slide up into the top 5, the top 3, just based off like where his ceiling is. Same thing with ETN. I think ETN, where he was ranked, where his rankings were, I think he's got a huge margin to move up. And if the guys can stay healthy, if they can hit, I think this is a playoff team. I'm 100% confident in my ability to manage to add depth and kind of go into that. So I feel good about it. I'm not a Singletary guy. I'll be honest with you. He just kind of slid to me. I needed a third flex, and it was the best value at the pick that I had.
That was a
so
9th round pick. Great value there, I think, for sure.
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, overall, I like my team. I think out of all my leagues, I have the most work cut out for me in terms of having to continue to build that depth. Because, of course, when bye weeks come, a couple injuries are going to happen throughout the season. I'm going to need to plug some guys in that I can trust. So I'm going to have to grind to build up that depth. But overall, I see this as a playoff team. Yahoo does too. So I'm a fan.
I like it. I like it. So, the next one is me. I'm talking about Reuben's squad, which I went pretty hard on Paul's team, and I'm gonna put the my Spectre glasses on and gonna delve into Ruby's team right now. And I gotta say, this looks like the receiver version of Paul's team. Okay, so Joe Burrow, solid. Mike Williams, great trade. I thought that was perfect for him, even though I think Mike Williams would have been better with Paul because he has Justin Herbert. Najee Harris, fantastic. Kyle Pitts, solid. Allen Robinson, solid. I think he'll do better than Odell's production over there. And he's a better receiver than Robert Woods, so I think he's going to produce really well over there. So that's fantastic. Gabriel Davis, I'm not really buying Gabriel Davis at all. It's number 2 receiver over there. He tore it up second half of the season, mainly playoffs, and I think a lot of people have that fresh in their mind. The divisional game where he had like 4 touchdowns against the Chiefs and like 13 catches. So I get that. I get the hype. There's a lot of hype behind him, but Diggs is the guy over there. And then his last flex, this one is just a flyer, Sammy Watkins. And look at his team right now. This dude's trying to find Devontae Adams, I guess, because he drafted Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, and he's got Sammy Watkins. I'm surprised he doesn't have Randall Cobb on his team because, like, dude, just get every Packer receiver, Reuben, while you're at it, please. Yeah, James Cook, he drafted him. He's looking for maybe a running back for the future. Sky Moore. I mean, these are a lot of like rookies he took. Michael Gallup was late. Isaiah Spiller, rookie. Yeah, as a Chief fan, Sky Moore, I don't think he's going to be. I think his I think a ceiling for him career wise maybe a Golden Tate, which is fine. It's a solid receiver. Maybe not Tyreek Hill as maybe he's thinking, but who knows? But I gotta say, if this team, I'm playing this team week 1 and I see Sammy Watkins on your roster, let's just say it. Sammy Watkins is not a startable fantasy receiver. He's barely an ownable fantasy receiver at this point anymore. I mean, come on. Pretty much the whole offseason went by before Sammy Watkins was finally signed by the Packers. I mean, he's barely even ownable in the NFL anymore. It's kind of sad, really, because I like Sammy Watkins, and he's still young too. He has the injury bug. He catches it every year. So yeah, Reuben, this is a B minus, solid B minus at that. And I think you're going to be contending big time for the to wear the crown of the Pancake King. It's unfortunate. I hope you're not allergic to pancakes or anything they put in there, the buttermilk, because that's going to be all you, baby. I think there's a real shot you come away with being the Pancake King. And I don't want to say it because I love you, and we had a key time during the draft. I pretended to like some of your picks. I didn't dog them. I pretended to like a lot of your picks. I didn't want to be an asshole. I said, ooh, Key, it's pretty solid. Or I just gave you an ooh, but in my head, I'm like dogging the shit out of it. But hey, man, good luck to you, because it's gonna be you're gonna have some struggles this year, I think. Christian Kirk's not a bad one though. Christian Kirk's being a 6 man, it's pretty solid. But
I will say, I said it on the keeper show. He had Mike Williams as an 8th round keeper. If you're going to trade, if you want him that badly, like just keep him in the 8th. Draft Kyle Pitts in your 2nd or something like that. You end up trying to get him in the 2nd. You don't get him, then you trade away a 3rd to get him. It just doesn't make any sense. That's why you're starting a guy you picked in the 17th round. So,
and he would have gotten Kyle. Well, based on what you just said, he would have gotten Kyle Pitts with that 2nd round pick.
Oh yeah, 100%. That just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I love Reuben to death. His heart's in the right place. But this is not what you want. So good luck, Reuben, because IHOP will be calling your name, my man. Man, we can't wait to have you in the Pancake King rankings. So our next one, Alex, you're going to talk to us about the Summer Bowl Independence Day MVP, Marcus Berry, who he dominated. Whoever wants to know, we had the Summer Bowl right after the fantasy draft. We had it on Sunday, and Berry tore it up, defied all the odds. He had 13 catches, 4 touchdowns, the game-winning catch. So yeah, the kid's doing pretty well. He's riding. He's on cloud 9 right now. So, Alex, tell us about your what you got to say about MPB. And actually, before we do that, we're gonna go to commercial break. MPB Fitness, Marcus Berry Fitness is back. If you want to lose some weight, if you want to gain some muscle, contact Marcus Berry at Marcus Berry Fitness, and on Instagram, Facebook, Marcus Berry. We're gonna take a quick commercial break.
What's going on, guys? It's Marcus here. If you're looking to lose 5 to 10 pounds over the next 14 days, well, I'm launching a free 14-day fitness challenge. Comment or DM me below with the arm flex emoji. Let's go.
And we're back. Alex, let's talk to us about Marcus Berry.
Yeah, Marcus Berry, we've been talking about him. He's back. He's definitely back. We saw what happened, in the Summer Bowl / Independence Day Bowl. Came out of nowhere, to be completely honest with you. We were actually, talking before the game about defense and everything, and we kind of wrote off Berry. That guy ate. I think he's looking forward to eating this year. He's back. I'm excited to see what happens. But diving into his team, I think, honestly, with the 3 keepers he had, I might go out on a limb and say that they were the 3 best keepers in the league. I think they were up there, at least top 2 or 3. And I personally, just because, Adams and Tyreek being, both 20th round tenders and not having to give up a 1st or 2nd rounds, for Eckler. Now, obviously, I understand that, he traded a lot to get Tyreek. I'm just thinking of future value in general. I'm a fan of, who he kept. And so I think automatically that was going to project him, for me at least, as a playoff roster. In terms of the picks that he took in the draft, keepers aside, I'm going to give it a B minus in terms of the picks that he took. But overall, this roster, I think, is a playoffs roster. I have him finishing somewhere around 4 to 5. Now, even though it's a very different look, right? This is the first year going away from the MB Stackers, and we actually just retired that jersey, retired that number this weekend. So it was pretty emotional, and it was kind of changing the guard, so to speak. I got to say, overall, to me, this feels like a pretty classic Barry roster. When you look at the years past, you replace Kyler with Aaron Rodgers. It's a pretty similar feel in terms of you're heavily reliant on 2 to 3 guys every single week. When those guys hit, Barry's winning. And because those are really good players, 70% of the time, they're going to have really good weeks. And so, it puts them into that playoff spot. But is it enough to carry him, past the semifinals? I don't know. I'm not a fan of Miles Sanders. I don't really like the picks that he had on his bench. But I will say this. I think Barry got his guys. For people who don't know, me and Barry had actually 2 in-person trades within the draft. And we were able to facilitate that by basically coming over. I was coming over to him saying, hey, I'm like 5 picks behind you. There's a guy that's there right now that I want. Who are you looking at right now? And he told me, I was like, dude, that guy's going to be there in like a round or 2. I was like, no doubt. And every single time the guys he was looking at actually fell to him. So they're his guys. So I'm sure he actually feels pretty decent about his team. But from my standpoint, I thought his draft was so, but overall, um, I don't knock him going Kyler at all, just because the Bears' nature is just to go top heavy. Kyler in the second. I think there was other guys that could have made his roster maybe a little bit better, but overall, I don't knock that at all, just because he had top heavy keepers. So like I said, I think it's a so draft for him, but I think it's a good team, solid playoff team. So nothing really to knock about it.
So we actually have a special guest for the second episode of the Cobb and Dash show of this season. It's Marcus Berry himself. Marcus is actually joining us right now.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he's gonna respond.
Mark Berry fitness music.
Well, get in here,
Cue the intro.
Yeah, so Barry, you heard what Alex had to say about your squad. What do you have to say about his grade and his thoughts on your squad?
I mean, I think it's fine. Everyone's got their own opinion. I'm happy with my team. I like my picks, and it was great doing business with you, Alex. So, key.
That's it. That's all you have to say. Any thought process behind just why you did what you did? Was your strategy going into the draft? Because you talked before the draft with the Baja, and you specifically said, "I have a strategy." What was your strategy?
Just keep it simple. Keeping it simple for myself. I feel like in previous years I've kind of do way too much and kind of overthink some picks. I know there was one pick I definitely overthought a little bit. I could have waited on Carr, and I could have definitely grabbed someone else there. But overall, I'm pretty happy with my team, and I think Darrell Henderson, he could eventually be the starter with the Rams. I don't know if Cam Akers be good to go relatively soon.
He's clear and he's supposed to play
week 1.
Yeah, that just came out actually today.
That's weak.
You were the first person to take the QB off the board, second round. Kyler Murray. It's been my guy for the last 3 years.
Yeah,
what made you make the jump?
Yeah, I love the dual threat ability of Kyler. In this league, all points matter, and can be the difference of me making the championship and not. But I think I'll have a really good season here. So
a lot of was made about your handling of like round 8, I believe. Where round 7, ZT came up to you to do a trade. You kind of didn't understand the trade. You first accepted it, but then when he repeated it to me when I asked what the trade was, you said no. And then the clock was ticking. I was going to steal your pick. You ended up taking Derek Carr to get you the first one to get a backup quarterback by like 3 rounds. What was your reasoning and rationale behind that?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I overthought the pick. There's the trade there. I don't know. I kind of wanted to keep it simple for myself, and kind of threw me off a little bit. But I will say, you never know. Derek Carr and Devontae Adams with the late round when Derek Carr went, that could have been really key. So could be a future stack. You just never know.
Viva Stack Vegas.
Yeah, of course.
Is there anything else you guys want to say before Barry exits the stage?
Yeah, I want to get some of just kind of aside from fantasy. I want to how you feeling? Over 24 hours after that performance you put on yesterday.
Feel great. Body is recovering, but feel great. Yeah, I told Dash yesterday before the game, hey man, I'm gonna tear it up today.
Yeah.
Tore it up. So
Hell yeah. Do you
Yeah.
think
man of his word.
do you think having the draft the same weekend helped just kind of keep you pumped throughout the whole weekend?
Yeah, seeing the boys.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely a lot of excitement there, which carried over to Sunday, which carried over today with ball too. So,
But last, before we go later on the show, we're going to do our playoffs and everything. Who we projected for the playoffs, who's going to be the Pancake King. Where do you see yourself in January?
the champion.
Really?
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah. Confident in my team, huh?
hey, you heard.
Wouldn't put anyone else in front of me. I mean, you got to. I mean, I love everyone's team, but just like I know the top six. They're going to be the usuals make it every year, just about. But I don't know. I feel like I can win this year, so got to get my name back on that trophy.
Fantastic. And before we go, what can the audience expect from Marcus Berry this year on the Cobb and Dash show with the motivational speeches for the Pancake King? Or the motivational speeches?
Yeah, just owners get ready. That's it.
All right. Thanks a lot, Marcus. Thanks for coming on. And that was Marcus Berry. Marcus Berry Fitness. You guys seen the commercials, so I don't have to do the spiel again. So now from Alex to Cobb. Cobb, you're going to talk about the Dashmeister squad, Barry's pickup lines.
Ooh, you're both my co-hosts.
Ooh.
Oh yeah. So, I think obviously we've all been used to that triple stack coming into this season, and it's kind of weird not to see it this year. But then all of a sudden you end up taking the most Chiefs players I've seen. I think you got the quintuple stack or whatever. Never been seen that before. So but yeah, I mean, I think overall, I think at least let's talk about your first round pick, Zeke Elliott. I think you were a little worried that a running back wasn't going to fall to you because you definitely needed one. And, Zeke fell to you, and I don't think you can complain about that. Mahomes and Kelsey stack might be their best year as a tandem, in my opinion, for fantasy. Deebo Samuel, it'll be really interesting to see if he's able to put up what he did last year. If Trey Lance is going to be the starter all year. But I think just having that dual threat of being a receiver and a running back, so he gets just that much more opportunity than your typical receivers is huge. And then I think you got some of the best value picks in the draft. You got Chase Edmonds. You ended up getting Patterson, Brian Robinson, RIP, Tony Pollard, Robert Woods, I think is great. I think your starters don't blow me out of the water. I think they're going to be competitive, but I think where your team really shines is the depth and also the potential you have for future seasons. We've been talking off air about, Alexander Madison, top Tony Pollard. Those guys are key backups already, elite backups, probably the top two backups in the league. And Pollard already has value outside of being a backup. And, if they go somewhere else next year, those are amazing keepers that you're going to be able to build off of. Chase Edmonds, I thought was a great value pick. And overall, I'm trying to draft grade. I'm going to give you a B plus. Mainly just, but similar to Alex, I don't think you guys had a ton to work with. You guys had some big gaps where you weren't picking for a while. But overall, I think your team came out solid, and it's going to be really competitive. I know Yahoo loved your draft, and I think I'm right up there with them. I don't remember what you got grade wise. I think you got a B with me.
Yeah, but they had me at second place.
So I don't get how they give you a B and then put you in second place, but I'll give you a B plus, and we'll see where I rank you later on the show.
Yeah, Yeah, like, if you look at my team, it doesn't jump off the flex. Chase Edmonds, CEH, Cordell Patterson's my flexes. It doesn't really jump off the page. It's like, oh man, it's scary. But it's the depth that really that I kind of had, like, Cooper, Robinson, Pollard, Robert Woods, Madison, and Madison today. I mean, with the 12 teams have contacted the Vikings to get him as their back. I mean, he goes to, let's say, Philadelphia, for example, takes the RB1 job over there. That's another guy I can plug and play right there. Yeah, I mean, I honestly, at the time I took Chase Edmonds, I wanted to draft CEH. So I went Edmonds before I went CEH, correct? I don't have the draft board in front of me.
Let me see.
I'm curious actually, because I wanted to
You went Edmonds in the 3rd, and then CEH in the 4th.
Yeah, so that was my predicament. I was like, do I go Edmonds or CEH here? I'll go Edmonds here. And then CH last. I mean, I figured, and the rest of the reason because I figured that CH would last because people are kind of over him. I don't think people buy him anymore. So I was like, okay, well, if he just lasts to that spot, I'll take him. And I ended up getting both of them. So RB went from a weak spot on my team to a pretty strong spot on my team, actually. So I'm excited about this team. It's different than the teams I've had in the past, and I get my triple stack back because I have CH now. So I have the running game, I got the passing game locked down in Kansas City, in one of the scariest offenses in the league. Now that it's a lot of unknowns in that offense, we don't know how it's going to be. So I'm very curious. Cordell Patterson was a guy I really like. Just he's so fun because he does everything: returns, he catches out of the backfield, rushes, and I'm really not buying Tyler Algier. I think Patterson's got something to prove. Because he's never really been a reliant guy in an offense before. This is last year was the second time he's really had been a reliant focal point of an offense. I think this year with Mariota, I think we'll have a lot of fun wrinkles to that offense. And yeah, I'm excited to see where that goes. So yeah, not a scary team that jumps off the paper, but very deep team. If I have any injuries, I have the depth to cover for it. So I'm happy in that. And because last year I didn't really have good depth, and that's something that kind of bothered me that I didn't have. And I had a lot of 5th round picks this year, so I could try to fix that depth problem. So I'll be in it for the long haul. So good luck. And I B plus, I'll take the B plus. Yeah, I think it's a solid grade. Fair. All right, so from Cobb, or from Dash to Cobb, and now I'm gonna be talking about my guy Ryan Cobb, the guy who was a runner-up in the league and the 2-time champ in the league, and who is now Dude Where's My Throne? That's his new team name. From Protect the Throne to Dude Where's My Throne. Gotta say, I started off kind of rocky for you because I didn't like the Russell Wilson keep. I think in retrospect, you probably should have kept Kittle with his tender. That was like my opinion, because with the way quarterbacks went in this draft, I think Stafford went late. Rodgers went in round 12. Trey Lance went in round 10. I think Russell Wilson's the 13th round tender. Okay. Well, I mean, it was late. I mean, it's a late round tender. I mean, so I get it, but I just think you could have kept Kittle, and then also may have, but I mean, your team wasn't bad. So Russell Wilson, Cortland Sutton stack, love it. Although I think the Broncos will be fighting for 3 or 4 in the division. So I don't know how that team's going to pan out, but I like Cortland Sutton and Wilson. Joe Mixon, great spot to keep. Joe Mixon, you were late in that first round. You kept him. He would have been probably number one, number 2 pick in the draft. So solid. Dalton Schultz, another solid one. Deontay Johnson. I mean, he's been probably the most consistent receiver of that Steelers group. I know everybody's jumping on Pickens' as jock, but Deontay Johnson has been the most consistent guy in that wide receiver room in Pittsburgh. So love it. Dalvin Cook, just injury concerns. But if he does get hurt, which he does miss 2 to 4 games a year, are you really going to be able to nurse that? I don't know. We'll see. Alan Lazard, a guy I really wanted in a lot of my leagues. I didn't get him in any of my leagues this weekend. Really upset because I think that's the only guy in that, besides Cobb, that's the only guy in that receiver room that Rodgers has any rapport with. And so I think Lazard's going to tear it up. I don't know why he's so low in so many people's rankings. So I really love that as your last flex. Then your bench, solid. Damian Harris starting back over there. People are shitting on him for whatever reason. James Robinson starting back over there in Jacksonville. Alex, sorry, buddy. Melvin Gordon, kind of a timeshare with Javonte. We'll see how that happens. But I like your team. I don't think it's the strongest Cobb team you've had, and we've seen some really good teams of Cobbs in years past. I just don't think you didn't have the draft capital as you usually do, because you usually are able to trade so much the first early 3 rounds. You really didn't have that this year, so you kind of had more of a realistic team for once in the last fucking 3 years. So that's key for the rest of the league. But yeah, it's a good team, but it's not a team that jumps off the paper. And I think that's how most of these teams are in this league this year. It's just you're a good manager, so obviously I think you will be a playoff team. So I'm going to give you a B for your draft. And I think you will be a playoff team. Again, not the strongest Cobb team we've seen in the years past, but there's plenty of time left. And I think Lazard is going to be really good this year. I think that's going to be one that really pays off. Be quite honest with you. But yeah, you just need to hope Cook stays healthy, because once that spot goes, whoo, good luck, my man. I think it's the first year you have had since you've had Cook, you didn't have Alexander Madison. So that's an interesting stat.
Correct.
So
yeah,
that really sucks. Anywho, but yeah, I really like your team. As always. So B, good solid B.
yeah. I guess going on my keepers, what I was thinking. I guess in retrospect, I probably, if I knew, I think I've told a lot of people this. If I knew Reuben was going to keep Mike Williams at 8, I would have 100% traded for him. But like I still like Russell Wilson. I think he's going to do great this year. That's why I traded for him. I'm not sold on Kittle this year, which is why I was kind of hesitant to keep him. And I also thought it was going to be easy to flip him, and it wasn't. Some people wanted to give up more for James Conner than I was asking for Kittle. I'm not trying to name off owners, but there's a few people out there that didn't trade for Kittle that I was surprised didn't even make an attempt at it. But that just means everyone's kind of feeling the same way, not really sold on him. I figured I'd be able to get a decent tight end. I ended up with Schultz. I like Schultz a lot better than Kittle this year, even though I like Kittle's talent a lot more. Yeah, but overall, I mean, the draft went about how I wanted it to go. The only pick that I feel like I missed on was the Madison pick you were just referring to, and the reason that didn't happen was because Damian Harris somehow fell to me in the 10th or something like that after he went in the second, or I think third round last year.
I mean, it was a bit of a reach when Hoch drafted him in the second round.
Yeah, 100%. But like, that made no. I remember. So when I took Lazard, I think I was between him, Ramondre Stevenson, and Damian Harris. And I was like, let's just go Lazard. See if any. Like I was thinking, Ramondre would fall to me, but DT got Ramondre, and then Damian Harris will somehow slip through the cracks. And I'm looking at these teams that don't have any running backs, and then I don't know what reports you guys are looking at, but you guys are just wrong. And then I'm hoping, James Robinson and Melvin Gordon are able to keep a piece of those backfields, and hoping they're going to be good flexes I could plug in. Other than that, not really excited about any like potential keepers next year. I wasn't able to get any like key rookies or anything like that. But overall, solid team. Not my favorite team I've had in obviously the last 3 years, but that's just goes to show you how strong those teams were. And I'm going to be hopefully find my throne at the end of this run.
Ooh, I like it. I will say, if Damian Harris wasn't drafted there, I actually would have taken Damian Harris.
Yeah.
Because those are the two names I was looking at that pick, with the Madison and him.
Loser.
So Alex, finish us off with the reigning champion in Matt Hoch.
Yeah, I think Hoch is a spectacle to be seen on draft day. He's someone that kind of hides in the shadows year round. No one really sees him in person. Shows up on draft day to collect his trophy. Draws some attention to himself and kind of has an early exit. That's Hoch for you. He's the type of fantasy owner. I think at this point, I mean, he's got the most titles in the league right now. So it's hard. It's hard to deny winning. He's obviously one of the top owners in this league, hands down. He's a home run swinger. And that's what he is. He's going to come up to the plate and he's going to take his swings every single time. Now, two things are going to happen. You're going to hit way more home runs than someone that's just trying to get on base, but you're going to strike out way more than an on base hitter. What that means is, he's had the years that he's hit, and he's had the years that he's strucken out. And honestly, pre-draft, I was high on his team. I had him in my top 2 just based off keepers. Now, I think we can go back to before keepers were announced, the trade to give up the stack. I think he just gave up way too much to get Josh Allen. I understand he's the projected #1 quarterback for this year. I don't think the drop off between him or Burrow was justified for what he did. Whatever, he always makes his crazy decisions, and sometimes it works out for him, sometimes it doesn't. I was so hyped going into his team, knowing that I had to play in week 1. To be completely honest with you, I wasn't necessarily scared, but I told Dash, I think I told Cobb and a couple other owners, like, man, I got my work cut out for myself. I got a couple hard opponents. Got to start off the week 1 with Hoch. Everyone wants to go 1-0 in the first week, build some momentum. I was a little worried after seeing his roster. I'm feeling a little bit more and more confident. In fact, I'm projected to win by 8 points. It's actually the third highest projected margin of victory, going into week 1 right now. Now, with that being said, I think he's going to put up a hell of a fight. He's got some home run guys outside of his keepers, right? Outside of Allen, Justin Jefferson, and Chase, right? Aside from that, I don't love what he did.
Okay.
Now, typically, I'm personally a huge rookie guy. I'm all in on the rookies. But when you have that good of a core team, you don't need to take flyers on people. You can get guys that are going to perform, that can be a solid base and take you to repeat a championship. When you have that many flyers, he doesn't need those guys. He has his keeper set for the next couple of years, so he claims. People like Kenneth Walker, Chris Olave, where those guys were taken, there was better value that could be returned. If he has more guys that miss than hit, he's going to find himself in a position where, yeah, he's got a pretty decent roster, but he doesn't have a great flex 2-3. If one of those guys go down, he could catch himself missing the playoffs. So, like I said, I mean, he's a home run swinger. You got to appreciate that about himself, but this might be one of the years that he struck out. With that being said, though, I mean, overall draft grade, because I'm high on the rookies because he had a lot of stuff. I'll give him like a right on the edge of a B-B. I don't think it was the worst thing that could have happened. I think there is some upside there. I personally am a fan of the names that he took, so I don't want to harp on it too much. I just think with the position he was in, he could have came at this draft from a different angle. I'll give him a B, but I think where I have him in my rankings, I think he fell post draft. Then I think he could have executed pre draft if everything went according to plan.
All right. So now we're gonna get to a very fun portion of the Cobb and Dash show, especially the pre-week 1 Tomato King Pancake King rankings. And so each of us are gonna give us our bottom 6, and then after the bottom 6 is done, we're gonna go to our playoff 6, the really super early predictions of how everything's gonna go. And this actually makes more sense than the 3 keeper prediction show because that made no sense at all. Basing it off just 3 keepers and the picks they have. So, should we all go 7, and then go 8, and then go to the 12th, the last person? They want to do that? Should we do that? So
sure. Yeah, I'm gonna be a lot of these guys are really close, so it's gonna be hard to decipher. But
I feel like we're gonna be very different. I don't think all of us are gonna be very close on this one. I think it's gonna be very different.
no, yeah, I mean, it just again shows how close this league is right now. So
yeah. All right, should I begin with my 7th place?
Yeah, let's do it.
So a team that really breaks my heart to say this team is going to be a game outside the playoffs this year. It really breaks my heart because it breaks probably one of the best streaks that we have in the basement league, and it's the Barry streak. It's the Barry's teammate that always makes the playoff streak, and I think Alex, Big Barry content. I don't think it's gonna cut it this year. Based on what I'm seeing from your depth and the fact that you have Singletary and ATN, 2 guys who are very similar in the fact that like they could be busts, but they could be key. And I think it's too much of a 50-50 with 2 guys like that. And I think with your lack of bench on top of those 2 guys, it's very scary to have you making the playoffs with that team. And I just don't think that's going to be sustained. I think something's going to fuck up between those 2 flexes and you not having a bench to best support that. I hope I'm wrong because, God, I love that Barry fucking streak. That's one of my favorite streaks ever, like reality and fantasy. So I hope I'm wrong, but I have you as a game outside the playoffs as my 7th spot. Cobb, who's your 7th spot?
I also had Alex at 7.
Wow.
I had 3 teams very close. And yeah, unfortunately, I have Alex. I have you at 7 right now. I think the majority of yours, like Fournette, Javonte, Cooper, and Staff, are gonna win you weeks, and they could win you weeks and get you right in the playoffs easily. That's why like it's as close of a 7th as you can get. But yeah, right now I think there's a few teams that are a little more convincing to me, as far as like having that extra edge. But I have 100% faith that, I mean, you make the most moves. You're always making moves. I saw that Laviska Shenault pickup earlier. I like that already. But yeah, I have you at 7. I hope I'm wrong right there with Dash wanting that Barry streak to continue.
Yeah.
That's all right. Appreciate it. Put a little chip on the shoulder.
We'll get Barry in here in a second to motivate you.
No, I mean, I respect that. We'll see. I think my team. I'm banking on the upside with my roster this year, and so I feel pretty confident about that. I've had no doubts about not making it this year, but we'll see. My number 7. I mean, this is tough. I haven't even had a chance to really map it out. I kind of honestly had ranges of all these people. Just looking at it, it's really tough. At my number 7, it's tough. As tough as this is, I think I have Cobb at my 7 spot right now.
Hell.
I had him right at that 6-7 spot, and then with him putting me at 7, it kind of tilted the scale right there.
I was hoping that had something to do with
it. No, I mean, honestly, for me, in years past compared to now, like I feel like last year, the year before, like I remember doing these episodes, it was so clear cut to me who the bottom 6 and top 6 was. I feel like right now there's maybe a bottom 2, bottom 3, but like the top 9 teams right now, in my opinion, all have like I wouldn't be surprised at all if like who I have at 9 makes the playoffs. Like I think it's wide open this year, and that's what's the most exciting about going into the season. Like honestly, who I have at 9, who I have at like 5 or 6, there's really no difference at all. So it's such a coin flip for me right now. I think right now I'm not. There's a couple guys that I'm personally not fans of. I think according to the rankings, Cobb's got a good team, and he's obviously a well-established owner, proves that he can do it. But I think right now I have him right at that 7 spot.
All right. Man, hey, for the sake of the show, I hope all 3 of us make the playoffs again. So that's also another streak too. Since the show has begun, we've made the playoffs every year. So that's pretty sweet.
And one of us has made the championship every year.
Yeah, you son of a bitch. Yeah, well, so with 2 years of show, so 2 years, all 3 of us made. So hey, that's another streak. That's also at stake here too. So let's continue that one.
True.
So my 8th spot, I'm not gonna say too much about this. Just I have Teja. We talked about it earlier. I think Teja had a really tough slate of keepers, and had to do a lot with that. And he ended up drafting a lot of guys who were going to pan out towards the end of the season. The suspension, Godwin coming off the injury, Thomas not having played in like 2 years. So I think by the time those guys get into action, it's gonna be far too late. And I think Teja's gonna make a good run and make a valiant effort. But I think 8th seed is where Teja is headed.
Yeah, I similar going into this. I was similar to Alex. I had a bunch of these guys in ranges. I didn't really have specific positions for them. So a lot of these teams are extremely close. But I have Adam at my 8th seed. I just think between CMC and Derrick Henry, we saw with Paul, just seeing someone push into contention every year with the being stacked at running backs. I think he's going to be a very gritty team, and I think he could surprise some people and even sneak into the playoffs. It just depends on if someone like Rashad Bateman pans out, and if that can be at least a QB, like top 6 QB1 probably. I could see Adam making a little bit of noise. Probably not getting the championship, but I think it's a very strong 8 seed, about as strong as an 8 seed that we've had in a while. So.
Yeah, Man, I'm so torn because like I said, honestly, like even like 4 through 9 right now, like this is so open this year. I have ZT right now at my 8 spot. I was literally debating between ZT being like a 5 or 6 or like a 7 and 8. Like, I mean, I actually do like his team. Um, there's just so much talent right now, and I know he struggled down the stretch in terms of making the playoffs the last couple of years, and so just for the that sake, and I know he hasn't let go of Lamar, and that's been a questionable thing the last couple of years. Just because of that, I'm going to have him just outside the playoffs. But honestly, he might have, for me, just because I'm a kind of a my own ranking type of guy. I think he had arguably one of the best drafts. Now I know a lot of those guys end up just falling to him. Um, I think he had one of the best drafts and probably the most underrated draft in my opinion. Going into this, I had him as a bottom 3 team, and the fact that he climbed all the way up to the point where I was really considering putting him at that 5-6 spot says a lot about his draft. But yeah, I mean, just for these hypothetical rankings, I'll put him at 8. But again, it's up in the air.
All right, that's interesting. Yeah, based on my top 6, it's gonna be. I think our top 6 is gonna be completely different because we'll get to that later. Okay, so for my number 9, I have Hotch for the reasons Cobb kind of laid out. If he or Alex laid out, if Hotch just drafted like a normal person with the keepers he had, he wouldn't be a question. He'd be number 1 or 2. But the fact that he drafts like an idiot, trying to get the next best receiving class or rookie class, it's just like, dude, what are you doing? Just draft normally. You already have 3 keepers that you're gonna keep, for a long haul. AJ Dillon, his starting back. The guy's gonna be 50-50. Is gonna be his starting back. And then Darnell Mooney and Isaiah McKenzie is his last 2 flexes, and then a bunch of rookies outside of that. Let's say all those rookies don't hit. What happens? His team blows. Isaiah McKenzie's his last flex, the number 3, maybe a number 4th option in Buffalo. It's pretty bad. Darnell Mooney, a receiver for the worst team in the league, that could potentially be pretty awful. So yeah, I got Hotch in the 9 spot. I think he could. There's potential he could be fighting for Pancake King. I'm very serious about that.
So that'd be a big drop for the champ there. At my 9 spot, I'm gonna go with Reuben. I was dogging his decision a little bit, but his starting, or at least outside of Sammy Watkins, maybe eventually he can fill out that last flex. His starters are strong between Burrow, Mike Williams, Najee Harris, Kyle Pitts, A-Rob. And I like Gabriel Davis. I know Dash was saying he's not sold on him. If he was the last flex, I'd be a lot higher on this team. But just going purely off of starters right now, I think Reuben, has potential. It's just how is he going to deal with the depth that he has? There's like when you have 3 receivers on the same team, they're not all 3 going to pan out. So you're essentially saying that 2 of these roster spots are kind of wasted at this point. But I get you're trying to play the field and get the one that will pan out. But I just think the depth is going to impact him and kind of hold him back from pushing into the playoffs. But I could see him getting some tough wins this season. But I'll keep him at 9 for now.
Alex,
For me at 9, I have Teja. Again, I mean, I honestly I don't have too much to say. I just think that he might be missing that one key person to take him there to the top. Again, if those guys do hit, it's such a crapshoot this year, and I just tripling down that statement. I really think this is the most wide open year that I've seen. Honestly, since I've been in this league, I think honestly they're the top 10 teams. There's like between 1 and 10, in my opinion, it's a minuscule difference. For me, there's clear the 2 bottom teams, in my opinion, have no shot at making the playoffs. But literally from 10 to 1, like I would not be shocked if who I have at 10 finishes ahead of like who I have at number 1 at all. It's that open. So Tasia, if you're watching this, don't take it personal. Like these rankings are tough, but I mean, just the way it falls right now, I'll have him at 9, but again, it's tough.
All right. Yeah, don't take this personally to anybody in this league. It's ridiculous that we're doing a super early prediction, just like the hot take shows. They do super early Super Bowl predictions right after the draft. I mean, this is how it does. That's how it goes. So our 10th spot, and I stress that, don't take it personally. My 10th spot, I got Paul Perka-Beasley. I think he's gonna get Perka-Beasted this year, big time. I think that a team that has 2 backup running backs in their starting lineup, it's just not destined for greatness. It's destined for IHOP a week before the draft. That's what it's destined for. I think Paul needs to get that appetite ready for eating a lot of pancakes. And I think he needs to get Stu and Adam on the horn and ask them about their experience so he can try to make it better for himself, because that's where I think he's headed with this team that he has. Kareem Hunt as a backup, and then Breece Hall as a backup in that starting lineup. I just think with not so much of a bench to back that up, with Jahan Dotson to back that up. I mean, that's just so bad. I can't. I wanted to put it at 12, but I can't, because there's 2 other teams I feel are worse than that team. So, Paul, IHOP baby might be coming to you. Who's your 10th spot, Cobb?
I have Paul as well.
Mhm.
So when we heard that trade at the draft of him giving up Mike Williams and I thought, I thought it was kind of a bad trade on both parts, but I thought Paul was going to come out ahead just based off of, maybe being wrong about Breece Hall, and then seeing who he got at the 3rd. He got Kittle with that. And I mean, like Alex was saying, Paul's starters could pull. Like him being in my 10th isn't saying that he's not going to be competitive, because again, all these teams are so close. I just think that there's the depth really kills him here. And Herbert, Diggs, Taylor, those are awesome. Awesome starting or top 3. Those are his keepers, and they're going to win them weeks. But I actually really like Jahan Dotson. But that's not a guy that is going to make an impact, at least in my opinion, early on. You still got Terry on that team. But
And Curtis
the
Samuel.
depth. What?
I said, and Curtis Samuel too.
And Curtis Samuel. So the depth is just not doing it for me. Any sort of, and who knows how the Cleveland offense is going to look like. I had Kareem Hunt in the league last year, and I was happy having him, but who the hell knows what that team's going to look like this year. A lot of question marks for Paul's teams, and not having the depth there is really, really hurting him. But it's going to be interesting to see how he does without his 3-headed beast of running backs that he had last 2 years. So Paul's in my 10.
Alex.
So yeah, at my 10, I have Adam. Again, looking at Adam's team, I'm honestly a fan of it. Like I have nothing negative to say. It's just at this point, when I have rosters that are coin flips to me, where it could go either way, I'm just looking at the track record of owners in terms of what where everything lies, and looking at Adams' historic playoff percentage. He's been a pretty good owner. He's had his years, and he's had obviously the reigning Tomato King, now renamed as Pancake King. He's had his years where he's been rock bottom as well. He's had his ups and downs, and so because he hasn't necessarily been a consistent playoff guy every single year, I have him outside of, my top 6, but just based off roster alone, there's no reason why this couldn't be a potential playoff team. But just kind of the way the apple lies here, I got him at 10.
All right. Yeah. For 11, I have Ruby. Yeah, I think we kind of talked about already why Reuben is in this spot that he's in. His receivers, Gabriel Teja was not the biggest fan, and Sammy Watkins, I think again we have a 3-person race for the who wants to be at IHOP for 24 hours, and Reuben's definitely good. Sammy Watkins is gonna put you there, Ruby. Again, I love you, brother. And then all those rookies you picked, hey, someone might pan out. I think it makes more sense for you to be drafting rookies than say Paul. I mean, not Paul. Say Hoch, who doesn't need all his rookies that he has. Like he has his set keepers. You may be in a little, maybe this might be a little stopgap year, to find your next guy, and maybe those rookies pan out, maybe they don't. But yeah, Sammy Watkins ain't it, and I think IHOP's where you're gonna go, where you're gonna be, maybe. Cobb, who's your 11th?
My 11th is going to be Teja. I think he picked up a tough roster. I think he did all right. And the main reason I have him this low is that it's a lot of pressure to succeed early on in the season. And I'm not that kind of betting guy. You're gonna have to hope you like Dash and Alex were talking about being able to go, 3-3 or maybe 2-4. It's just seeing how competitive this landscape is. Every single win is going to be important. So having that kind of handcuff and handicap at the beginning of the season is kind of rough. I'm not overly sold. Like, I know everyone's hyped on Hurts, and he's going to get you the points, but Keenan Allen, Mike Williams is the guy there. Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon's going to be interesting. Cole Kmet, I know people have been hyping him up, but these are just guys that like don't really excite me that much. Brandon Cooks, Cam Akers, Michael Thomas, and I could be like, in 4 weeks' time, Teja could hop up all the way in my top four, just based off like with Godwin and Hopkins sitting right there. Those guys coming back and being healthy and being able to, if Teja's in a good position to win, that'll be key. But that's just where I have him now. Just kind of a rough to put yourself in that position at the beginning of the year, in my opinion.
Yeah, so my 11, I have Reuben as well. Looking at this, honestly, taking a quadruple look back at his roster, I actually don't hate it as much as I thought I did. For me, we'll get to who I have as Pancake King. I thought who I have as Pancake King plus him were my clear bottom two. After looking at this, he could be back in that running for me in terms of eligible playoff teams, in my opinion. Like looking at this now, I don't think it's the worst roster. The reason why I do have him down there, one, that draft day decision with the Brees Hall situation, giving up the third, in my opinion, was awful. On top of that, I've had no luck getting through with him for trades. I've talked to him, hey, what are you doing? Very closed off, doesn't really want to tell me what he's doing. Every time I ask, hey, you open to considering this? Majority of owners in this league will have at least a conversation with me, even if it's not something they're really thinking about. They'll at least be open to hearing an offer and considering it, and just having normal fantasy talk. He's kind of a weird owner in that sense. He's very particular about his guys, and I don't think he goes with the flow enough. I think he's too isolated into like his guys, his team, and as we know, as competitive as it is right now, it's all about being able to adjust on the fly and make the correct game day decisions. And I think it's going to come down to a couple weeks that are going to be close. And I think he's going to have the wrong flex guy in. Week one starter, if he does go with Sammy Watkins over Christian Kirk, I'm a Kirk guy. I think that's idiotic to have Watkins in there. It's just those little examples where he's like, he really just wants to take shots on guys that have very, very low floors on week-to-week basis. And I think because, again, the landscape, it's so wide open this year, anyone can win it at this point because of those decisions that I think are going to be kind of his downfall. I have him down there at 11 right now.
All right. So with my Pancake King, I think we're all going to be we might have all the same guy. And again, don't take it personally. It's so early. We could be totally wrong about all this stuff. But I have Roden. So his team name is Chasing Canton, but we need to be changing that team name to Escaping IHOP because that's where he's headed, folks. That is where he's headed. Tom Brady, T. Higgins, James Conner, Mark Andrews, Eli Mitchell, Jalen Waddle, Hunter Renfrow. He reached out Hunter Renfrow. Eli Mitchell, he had him. He traded me a 5th round pick for Eli Mitchell. Then he ended up not keeping him. Then he ended up drafting him in the 2nd round. I don't understand it. I'd much rather have James Conner as a 20th round tender, or not James Conner. I'd much rather have Eli Mitchell as a 20th round tender, trading a 5th for him instead of trading. What did he trade you for James Conner? A 6th?
6th and 8th.
A 6th and an 8th for James Conner?
Yeah, he traded me. He gave me his 6, and I gave him his. Or I gave him my 8th. He gave me his 6.
And what was Connor's tender?
Like 8, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I just the one of the worst moves of last like month was that trade right there, and then he ends up drafting Eli Mitchell in the second round. I mean, you obviously were a fan of him; you're going to draft him in the second round. But yeah, with the Eli Mitchell hamstring concerns, that's not good at start the season out, and they have a million running backs over there. Rear going to take that job, plus Debo and Trey Lance. They're going to be taking a lot of carries. Jalen Waddle has missed pretty much the last 3 weeks of camp. Seen with a wrap in his leg, not good. T. Higgins, a number 2 receiver, as his main guy out there. Hunter Renfro solid. I think he could be an Edelman in the Raiders offense with Josh McDaniels there now. But it's not a sexy team. And then his bench, easily the worst bench in the league. I made fun of Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson and Randy Moss in this compared to this bench that Roden has. Garrett Wilson, Robbie Anderson, Marvin Jones Jr. Russell, I mean, this is the worst bench ever, and it's so bad because his starting lineup's so fragile, and if any of those guys are gone for a game, he's starting a bum in there who has a potential of a 0, and that I can't really say about much other teams in this league. This is bad. I love Dave to death. This is bad. I love his energy he brought at the draft on Saturday. It's always good to see him. That's a kid, whether Hoch is there or not, that's his main guy. If Hoch's not at the draft, Roden's always at the draft. And I love that. Whether Hoch is there or not, Roden's always there and always putting 100% effort. And he's always paying me on the day of the draft. He's a good kid. And don't take this personally, Dave. We love you.
Yeah. I mean, I'll keep this short. My Pancake King front runner is also Roden. For all the reasons Dash just said, I just think it's a very okay starting lineup followed by absolutely no depth. And on top of that, like I'd be like, oh, you're gonna have to make some trades. I don't even know what you're gonna trade to be able to prove that. So hopefully, active on the waivers. Maybe, I'm not the biggest James Conner guy, but a lot of people are, especially with Chase Edmonds gone. So that could be a great keep. T. Higgins could be key. Tom Brady, if he's able to keep up his magic. But overall, I'm just not sold on this lineup. And I think this is a pretty clear level below the other teams that we've been listing. But again, like Dash said, obviously committed owner, Roden, he'll be active. He's just got to be active on that fab and using that early and often.
He's a good boy. Alex?
Yeah, I think might be the only spot in our entire rankings that we have a three-way consensus here. I as well have Roden as my Pancake King. I think when you look at it, he's the only team in the entire league, just from an ADP standpoint, that doesn't have a single first or second round guy. He has a single guy ranked in the top 24 in terms of like redrafted ADP. Doesn't matter at that point. You could be loaded with 3s and 4s. You can't win if you don't have guys that are going to bring you that 20 plus point performance games in this league. If you have safe floors, but no boom ceiling games, doesn't really matter how good of an owner you are. It doesn't matter your depth. It's just not going to cut it, especially with as competitive as it is this year. And factor in that he has the worst depth and bench in the league. I don't see. I think I take back my statement earlier where I said 10 teams. I think there's 11 teams that have a shot to make the playoffs. He's the only one I will say has a lock to not make it. I think if he makes a couple moves this year, has some floor games, he's got a shot to somehow stumble out of the Pancake King spot and finish like 11 or 10. He's got a shot if something goes wrong for a couple other teams. I think he's the only team I'll say now that will not make the playoffs. 100% guaranteed will not. Again, I mean, talking about a super nice owner, he always gets back to me. I have nothing against Roden at all, but I think when you look at it, he had that run where he made the championship game 3 years in a row. I think if you look at his trajectory, his track record, the moves he's made in season, like the literal moves he's made, has declined every single season. He was sharing Hoch's draft board, asking Hoch for tips, on draft day. Sliding down, and at this point, once you've been at the top and you're descending at a very high accelerated rate, it's very hard to stop the momentum and climb back up the hill. So unfortunately, I hope he's got a big appetite. I think he's gonna be eating some pancakes this year.
Yeah, I think he's moving towards a full on rebuild, and I think he knows that. He kind of told me that after the draft that he thinks it's rebuild time. So I think it's going to be a revamped Roden roster next year. By this time next year, it's going to be none of these keepers will be his keepers next year. I don't think so. I think he's going to do some trades during the season and the off season next year. This is not going to be three keepers. Are not on his roster right now is what I'm getting at. Okay, so we're gonna go with the top six, but we're not gonna do it the same way we did this one. I feel like the Pancake King has more of a allure to it. So we're just gonna go. Only one I want to hear is your number one team. So give me 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But give me your full explanation on your champion, on the preseason champion for you guys. So I want to know your 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then a full explanation on why you have your champion, who he is. So I'll start off. I have Adam at my 6. I have Cobb at my 5. I have Barry at my 4. I have myself at 3. I have ZT at 2. And I have him losing to Stu in the championship. So Stu is my preseason champion based on his draft. Like I said, I thought he had the best keepers based on draft capital last year, like his whole thing going into the draft. And I said, as long as he drafted fine, his team would be the preseason favorite going into the season for me. And quite frankly, man, every pick he was just boom. I think someone said he was fast as hell with all his picks. Right now he's got Aaron Rodgers in his starting lineup as his quarterback, which I think is smart because Trey Lance is not looking sexy. I think Hoch is going to lose that bet him and I have. Because they're re-signing Garoppolo. I've read reports that Trey Lance does not look good in training camp. But he got Aaron Rodgers in the 12th round, so that's going to be his quarterback. He'll be able to go between Lance and Rodgers all season. CeeDee Lamb, Nick Chubb, Goddard, Swift, Pittman, Marquise Brown, and then he's got a choice of if Hollywood Brown's not key, you can go Demont, you can go Jacobs, you can go Adam Thielen. So yeah, Stu's team runs deep, and he's got a good 3 guys you can sub in for any of those guys on his starting lineup. I think it's top to bottom the best team Stu has had since his championship runs back in 2013 or 2014. So I'm looking forward to see what Stu does this year, but I think that him and ZT have had the best drafts and they have the best overall teams from top to bottom. Looking at how deep their team is and how like kind of the blue chippers they have on their bench, and the big names they have on their bench, rotated in with the guys on their starting lineup. I think you really can't argue with Stu or ZT being the champion as of right now. And I think ZT will come this close to getting his first title in this league, as long awaited title. He's been waiting a long time for this as being one of the founding guys of this league and not being on that trophy. He's going to lose it to Stu. Stu gets a second trophy, gets a second championship, this coming season.
Yeah, so my 6th seed, I got Hotch. 5, I got Barry. 4, I got ZT. 3, I got Dash. 2, I got me, and I'm finding my throne, and I'm losing it again with Stu. So Dash and I actually had a few of the same. I think this is our 4th same spot for a team. We talked about this again offline with the man himself, just congratulating him on an amazing draft. And I don't think we talked about this. I don't think Stu likes how fast his rebuild happened. It happened in a blink of an eye. That draft, he dominated. His keepers were great, and those are keepers he also made moves for. I think he might have drafted Chubb like originally,
Yeah.
but this offseason, I think he made moves for all these guys, and that just shows you can't be inactive and expect things to just happen. Stu made it happen, and good things come to those who don't wait. In fantasy. So, Stu, congratulations on a great draft, preseason favorite, and I think you're you've been thirsty for a playoff appearance, and I think you're gonna go all the way. So.
Yeah, so looking at mine, I mean, honestly, again, so tough to rank. I think I have Paul at 6, myself at 5, Hotch at 4, Barry at 3, Dash at 2, and Stu at 1.
Wow.
To be completely honest with you, and if I had a really really in-depth look, it honestly might be in a different order. But like I've said from the beginning of this, I strongly feel, and this actually is kind of getting me kind of getting me hyped up for the season and really excited. But I genuinely feel this year that there's no true favorite. I think on paper, I'm having Stu at my one, just because when you look at it, he's got the depth. He does have some high value picks. But at the end of the day, I genuinely don't really rank him much higher than the next team and the team after that, and so on and so forth. For me this year, especially when I look at my rankings and hypotheticals and everything like that, I really truly think it's going to come down to who's the best owners. Especially when it comes to making the playoffs, I think it's going to be so hard to talk about who's going to win it all this year. I think you need to talk about who's going to make the playoffs, because I don't think a single team's a lock right now to make it, in my opinion, because the drop off on rosters are so minimal. It's going to come down to who the best owners are, and that's kind of how I put together my rankings. Hodge has proven that he's can win in this league. Paul's always teetering right at that borderline spot. I'm consistently like a 4, 5, 6 seed every single year, so I have no doubt in my ability to grind and make the playoffs. Dash is always right there, right on the cusp of a bye week. Barry's always right there in like the 3, 4, 5 slot, just because of strong keepers. And then Stu's the one that's making the biggest jump this year, but that's just because of his roster on paper. But I truly think anyone really from like 10 to 1, 11 to 1 literally has an equal chance this year. And I've never felt that way in my past. Even looking at any of my other leagues this year, there's some really skewed top heavy rosters in all of my leagues. This is the only league where I truly feel like this year and this year only, it's anyone's shot at it. So with that being said, may the best owners win. That's it.
Yeah, 100%. I can't wait to get back to the season. So we have next Monday is the preview show for week 1. And I'm looking forward to the Cobb and Dash Out being back. And I'm looking forward to the season being back. I mean, last year we didn't really do a good job of doing every week episodes. And I think we're going to get back on track with doing the Cobb and Dash Show every week. And NFL season's back, baby. Can't wait. I can't wait. So we'll see you guys next week. I hope you guys enjoy the draft grades and the pretty much the preview to the season show. And we're looking forward to giving this to you guys every week. And I hope you guys enjoy it. Stu, hope you have a safe trip back to Iowa, buddy. It was good seeing you.